definition of insanity is. Insanity is doing the exact same fucking thing over and over again, expecting shit to change. That is crazy.
Ubisoft in the past was one of my favorite software houses, and with time I have lost all interest in the company. And there are several reasons for this. The old Ubisoft was appreciated for its games, both in terms of quantity and quality. It was a company that even tried to produce smaller titles, like Valiant Arts, Child of Light, and more experimental titles, like Starlink Battle for Atlas, and other titles from the Tom Clancy brand, like Ghost Recon, Splinter Cell, Oaks, and other different games from the classic Assassin's Creed and Far Cry. Creed and Far Cry are two major IPs by Ubisoft. My past self really liked playing Assassin's Creed Saga. My favorites are the second and fourth chapter. Far Cry 3 and 4 are two great games, but I think something was broken inside of Ubisoft. Instead of creating new IPs, they almost killed their credibility as a company. I think it's important to briefly review the story of the company itself. Ubisoft is a French company, founded by the Guillemot family in 1986. The company is principally a family business. One of their most important projects was Rayman for the first PlayStation in 1990, which helped grow the company. 6 years later, Ubisoft acquired Red Storm Entertainment, which allowed the French company to secure the right for the Tom Clancy series. And with this acquisition, Ubisoft released Splinter Cell for the PlayStation 2, and other sub-brands like Rainbow Six, Ghost Recon, and War and Oaks were born. In 2007, with the first Assassin's Creed, Ubisoft saw great growth in terms of revenue, but the real expansion came with the second chapter of the saga, with Ezio Auditore da Firenze, one of the most iconic characters of gaming. In 2012, Ubisoft had another major success with Far Cry 3, with another iconic character, Vas Montenegro, on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. This became the golden age of Ubisoft. Other than that, the software house was expanding in North America, Europe and Asia. Ubisoft have 20,000 employees around the world with 40 studios. But something was changing inside Ubisoft. One of the first signs for me was Assassin's Creed Unity, released in 2014, a victim of annual release business model. The game was buggy and messy, and unplayable in a certain way. This was a shock for me to see. An important chapter of my favorite saga in such a dire state. And in the same year, the company released other games like Child of Light, Valiant Arts, The Crew, Far Cry 4, Rayman Legends, and other smaller titles. In that period, Ubisoft was transitioning from a longer development to annual release for their title. And this decision was made in 2014. It was one of the reasons why Ubisoft games start losing some of their appeal with gamers. The annual release model presents several problems. One of these being minimal increments in terms of evolution of their games, while the bigger titles were released buggy and unplayable. And this situation brought Ubisoft to current situation, where nobody buys their games because of this decision. The lack of creativity and the reiteration of the same formula in their most important games, like Assassin's Creed and Far Cry, and the recent failures with Star Wars Outlaws and Avatar. Ubisoft has lost a lot in terms of creativity, and their most important games have shown these trends. From Assassin's Creed to Far Cry, their other games are also victims of this kind of behavior. Avatar is Far Cry in space with blue monkeys. Star Wars Outlaws is a worse version of Watch Dogs. Instead of innovating and differentiating their big games from the others, Ubisoft has recycled their open world formula as soon as they are able. The major problem is that Ubisoft has left a process based on creativity and embraced an assembly-like philosophy, where video games are not a creative endeavor, but a soulless product where they can combine what is best to sell more copies. Unfortunately, it isn't just Ubisoft doing this, but a big part of Western publishers has followed this philosophy, killing the unique idiosyncrasy of their games to sell their games to a wider audience, and they have left behind the core audience who made the company what is it. In this decade, Ubisoft has released some other games, like Mario plus Rabbids, the new Prince of Persia, which tried to be different, but the actual management downgraded this to team, and the former game director Davide Sogliani of the Mario games left the company in 2024 with other team members. Ubisoft Montpellier have followed a similar fate, and the current management of the company is to blame for this disaster. As always, it's the developers who pay the consequence of working under these incapable buffons. A thing I've noticed since 2014, Ubisoft was the company that created several trends. With their Assassin's Creed games, they created a model for the modern open world format. With Far Cry, they even created a good narrative where the difference between good and evil are not so easy to understand, with some player decisions having real consequences. But from Assassin's Creed Origin, where the company seems to have understood the player's complaint, but management just made the same mistake, using the same formula again and again. Other than that, Ubisoft has introduced a more aggressive microtransaction strategy in their games, following various trends, especially with live service and one of the dumbest situations with the crew, shutting down a game completely capable of being enjoyed online by the players. Nothing is more miserable than the attitude of the Ubisoft management team towards the player. In my opinion, the behavior of the CEO, Yves Guillemot, who complained about the player expecting too much. Or worse, insinuating that the players are indecent human beings. I'm not mad at this insult, because it shows how the current management is incapable of understanding the critiques of the audience, and the inability to listen to what the core players base want. Under the crew shutdown is one of the dumbest moves they could have made towards the core players. With the director of Ubisoft Plus, Philippe Tremblay, or the way I should pronounce this name, who said the players have to accept the idea of not owning their own games. Yeah, the manager of a subscription product who want you to pay every month instead of paying once and playing when you want. In Italian, we use a word to describe this kind of behavior, piangina, which can be translated to crybaby, because the continuous flops from several live service games to inability to deliver games that respect the standard for the players. In a certain way, Ubisoft has become the symbol of the degeneracy of Western publishers, and its fall represents the end of an era. This won't make me happy, because there are people who will lose their jobs. But in these years, the indie environment is blooming with new developers who have worked inside these big companies, and one of these games that come to my mind is Clair Obscur 33, created by a former Ubisoft developer. The gaming industry doesn't need this mega corporation to survive. The most important thing is that there are people with the will to develop great video games, with love and passion creating great adventures. Recently, Ubisoft has had several commercial flops, from the bad sales of Star Wars Outlaws to the backlash of Assassin's Creed Shadow, and it's sad to witness this self-destruction. But the Guillemot management is a complete failure every way, demoting their best teams, and now I'm talking about Ubisoft Milan and Montpellier. Continuously putting off Assassin's Creed Shadow due to the fear of another big failure, with the communication war in the Japanese community and the lack of respect for the Japanese culture. With the Yasu character and the lack of polish in the game, and from the last gameplay I've seen, they have improved the gameplay and the dimensional. But the more I've watched the video, the more my opinion was they've added Yasuke only to receive more money from the investors, not because they care about diversity. I'm not a big fan of DI debate, probably because I look for the quality of the game and the gameplay first. I am not bothered too much from pronoun stuff, but it's unavoidable to say the worst games of 2024 have had this element inside. I always prefer to see the quality of the product, and this game lack in many ways. But personally for me, it's not the sex or the ethnicity of the protagonist that's the problem, but the lack of good gameplay and good art direction. And back to Ubisoft, the company, we must pray that Assassin's Creed Shadow will perform well, or they'll have to sell the company. Only possible buyers is Tencent, but seeing the current geopolitical situation with the American government claiming Tencent is a military company due to its ties with the Chinese Liberation Army, other companies might the acquisition as an opportunity. But the main problem, if the current management doesn't want to lose their grip over Ubisoft for now, we will see how the situation changes. But with big competitors like Ghost of Yotei, Monster Hunter Wilds, and even Switch 2 with its new Mario games, I don't see the company in a good position. Unfortunately, Ubisoft is a rotten titan, and the management is the main culprit. Kicking them out of the company would be the best, because even some shareholders have the same opinion. Now, I hope you have enjoyed the video. I'm slow to produce videos, but I have decided to take my time to do things better and deliver better quality for the viewers of this small community. Happy 2025, I wish you the best, hasta la pasta, see you in the next one.